Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to another ladies night. So my last video I shared with you a relationship special, and I know these videos are not the most entertaining ones, but the reason why I'm sharing these stories is because there are so many different scenarios when it comes to relationships, and let's face it, there's no such thing as the one perfect piece of advice for all sibling couples out there, and that's because every relationship is different. So these videos are going to be dedicated to those of you couples out there who feel alone in a certain situation. I want you to know that there are others out there in the same boat, pun intended, with the same issues and the same questions. So hopefully by sharing these stories and these different views, some of you might find some insight. So tonight's episode is a chat with two of my good friends, Kevin and Thais. Dan and I met with them when we just started our adventure, so about 3 years ago, and we hung out again when we were sailing in Martinique. I think they're the perfect candidate for this segment because they're literally from two completely different backgrounds. I had the pleasure to Skype with both of them for tonight's episode about their relationship and how they found the balance to combine or to world together. So let's dive right in. Kevin, you basically grew up as a sailor, right? I mean, you grew up sailing as a kid.
Yeah. Since the younger age, pretty much always been on boats, so that's why it's hard to be on land sometimes.
So Thais, what was your first thought when Kevin told you that, like, you were already, a couple, and Kevin told you, hey, by the way, my dream is to be on the sailboat?
Well, in the beginning, I thought it was very excited about it because I always love it to be in the ocean, but I had that kind of bad experience in the past. So I became afraid of like open waters. Because imagine, I am a woman. I grew up in a big city. There is no ocean where I am, So for me, boating, water sports was something that was not, in my life whatsoever. So for me, everything was new. Every time I was trying to do something, of course, I was doing a lot of mistakes. And every time I saw in his eyes, his disapproval or his frustration, I felt so bad. The learning curve, depends on the level of stress. If you have a moderated level of stress, it's fine. You learn pretty well. But if it gets higher, you cannot learn. It blocks you. And then I was trying to do something, and then he was saying, oh, you are not doing what I'm asking you to do, but I didn't know what to do. I was so scared and feeling nervous.
Every relationship is different, and every boat is different, and every couple has their own way of learning things together, right? So if one person takes the time and teaching the other one at her own pace, then that's the key, because the way that Kevin would learn something is not the same way that you would learn something. It's not the same way that I would learn something. Yeah, especially when the sailor, like for instance, I'm just going to put you as an example, especially when someone like you, Kevin, already knows all the terms and all the words that comes to sailing, and your girlfriend or your partner doesn't really know that yet. And so saying like, hey, just pull the sheet, and then Thais look like, what are you talking about? And I've had situations where it gets really stressful for both, for the entire couple, where one yells at the other and the other one doesn't know what to do, and it becomes like a very stressful time.
In one of your videos, Kika, you were emphasizing how important it was the communication between the couple, especially when they are both living in a boat. Because any kind of miscommunication, like misunderstanding, can be a problem for both of us, So we always doing things together. So we can share things together, what's very magical. But at the same time, it can become a real problem. I shared with Kevin about my fear, that I was afraid of open water. He wanted to do with me what worked with him. But for me, I'm different. So with me, he had to have more patience, go into a process. And sometimes he just tried to push me to do things because he was thinking he was doing something good for me. Some people work like that, and some people don't.
There is something which is very important and not to be confused. I believe, because I know a little bit of your story, guys, like Dan and Kika. What's really important, I think, in your case, is you guys been progressing together. So you basically didn't know much about, sailing or boats in general. And so you get into it. It was for both of you a passion at the same time. And you guys both went together to a progression, learning together. It's very difficult when you have somebody, like Thais said, from two very different backgrounds. From her, which is completely like something brand new, and the level for me, which is something that I've been doing professionally for years. And it's very, very, very difficult to, get together to progress together. You're already knowing so much that person, and then you already project yourself in that person so much that you're not going to accept any kind of mistakes. In a sense, in a way, if the person cannot reproduce what you want the person to do, it's almost like you are actually failing at it.
The great thing about you guys is, like, Kevin, you know exactly what to teach Thais as well, because you know that she had no idea what a sailboat was. You know to not start with the sailing stuff, but to start by appreciate the waves moving or the little tiny things.
In the beginning, we start to laugh because I do a lot of mistakes, a lot of bullshit, because for me, I don't understand much. But then he started to get annoyed. Like I was not doing that. I was doing something in purpose. I don't know what he thinks, but he started to get annoyed. And then I start to get sad because I feel like I'm frustrating him. But in the other hand, it was also very important because we start to get more and more connected. Something that could put us apart was bringing us closer, because the effort that we both were making to understand each other, was, connecting us even more, because I was trying to see his passion. I was trying to understand his passion through him. And he was trying to understand me more, to be more patient, to know exactly who I am and what was important to me. And then we start to respect each other more. Our communication start to get like a better, and even our love start to grow. We live in a society where people, are really getting depressed, and the levels of anxiety is going so high because people, they are always in a rush. They are never in the present moment. They are worrying about something in the future. They are ruminating something that happened in the past, but they are barely in the present. And one of the things that I was fascinated, and the first time that I was like with Kevin, and I could see that he is completely in the present moment, feeling the boat, feeling the waves and the current, and then he started to teach me, and how to, see things, even the clouds, things that for me, although I'm always saying those things for people because I'm working in this field, I'm a psychologist, so I always encourage people to live in the present moment. And so then I realized that I was not in the present moment most of the time, and then that was really important, even for my mental health and for my well-being. So that's when I start to see that sailing is much more than only a passion or a hobby. It's really a lifestyle, and it's really something important, like for people to start to take into consideration, doing it more. Everything that you think about life, you start to, to rethink everything. So it's hard in the beginning, but it's something very special because it can change you. It can change you into a better version of yourself.
That's also the reason why I think, at the beginning you started like feeling like a lot of pressure, and then as the things were going, it was a little bit easier and a little smoother.
The balance in a couple, like you said, Thais, is the most important thing. Like understanding each other. With every couple, with every passion and dream and hobby, there's always a compromise, right? So if you prioritize your relationship, you need to find something together that works and that makes the both of you happy.
If it was me by myself, I will probably just like start going and just probably being on the boat and then cruising. But because we talk about, being a couple and try to adapt to each other and so on, we're just working on that with Thais to find a compromise and find a way that we can be somewhere a little bit more remote, but at the same time still be on the water, still be, cruising around. And so that's what we are kind of like trying to work on right now.
I always trying to say to him that it's important to find a balance So I think it's important for me to consider what is important to him, that's being in the boat. And for him, it's important to understand that for me, it's still something that I'm adapting myself. So as a couple, we're trying to find a balance when we consider both of us, what's important for both of us or for each one of us.
If you have anybody that's in your situation where she or he doesn't know anything about sailing, do you have anything that you would like to share from your own experience with them?
And one thing that I think is important to say, Kika, is that for me, meeting you was very important because, and I think what you are doing is sharing with other women out there, something that I had the honor to have, in the beginning, because I was so scared. I was in the beginning. I didn't know nothing. It was hard for me to talk with Kevin. And then I had you. And the moments that we had, by ourselves when they are doing then and Kevin was doing things, we are talking. And you were sharing with me, you're trying to understand me. And that for me was a turning point. I think one thing that is very important is finding someone beside, your couple, like your man. Finding a person you can share your doubts, your beliefs, or the things that you're afraid of can be something good to kind of facilitate the process of learning and, because sometimes it's hard when you are in a couple because some things can get in between. And I know from my experience that have this kind of conversation with you, helped me a lot.
Definitely, I think outside opinions is important because if the only person you talk to is your partner, then you will always, hear the things that you already know they're going to say. But if you have another advice, then yeah, you hear something completely different that you probably wouldn't think about.
For me, home was a house. A real concrete house. And then you start to invite me to think in a different way. You're not pushing me. You're not imposing me a different kind of thought. You're just inviting me to think in a different way. You're seeing the situation in a different kind of perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you think that living smaller definitely helped you with that?
Living smaller helped the couple. Because when you have a conflict, for example, like I always live in big houses, and you have like conflict with my brother or my dad or my mom, each one go to a room. And if I go to my room, like right now, I really don't see anyone. Every time I was, sad with someone or hurt, I was trying to avoid and stay like by myself. With Kevin, I couldn't do that. Because we are such in a tiny place. I don't have another place to go, and I say, oh my God, now I have to face it. And once I start to facing it, I start to become better on it. So we start to talking more. We start to deal with our conflicts, and that helps. What I think that it helps the couple to get more connected. So something that every couple should do at least once in their life.
And it could go both ways too, because there are relationships that break because of a situation like that, because of that miscommunication that they don't have, right? And then on the other side, like you guys, it could bring them even closer together because they have to talk to each other, and so whatever conflict they had, they just work on it. Well, guys, thank you so much again, and yeah, we'll keep in touch for sure. Bye.
Bye.
Talking to these two made me realize that there is always a way to find the perfect balance in a relationship. You just have to communicate with each other and try your best to understand each other and be patient with each other, and everything else with time will fall into place. Anyway, that's it for this ladies' night. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Cheers! Okay, well, that's it.